It is time to do something that I am very excited to do. Tonight, we are going to break down our NBA awards for the 2022-2023 NBA season. Our All-NBA teams, MVPs, Most Improved Player, Coach of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. All those awards we're going to talk about and break them down, give you some of my thoughts. I take this very seriously because when I talk about the NBA and I watch the NBA and I study the history of the NBA, all these awards and all these accolades really matter when discussing historical precedent, when you're discussing different players' legacy. So these are very important. I think that you should, when you're discussing them, when you're evaluating them, you should take them seriously. Now, the NBA's entertainment, we all love it, and it should be a lot of fun to dig into the numbers, dig into some of the stats, watch the games, watch the players, and kind of see if your eye test matches up with some of the stats that you see. Because the big controversy, big conversation is analytics versus eye test. I think that it should be a healthy combination of both. You spend, 6, 7, 8 months watching NBA basketball, utilize that, watch that, and then go back and look at the stats and see if the stats back up some of the things that your eyes are telling you that it saw. So we're going to talk about this because I'm super excited to do so. And I'm going to give you my thoughts and some of the criteria and things that matter to me. One of the things I'm a little more stickler for than I think a lot of guys I hear in the media is I think games played should matter a little more than it does for a lot of people. I think that when you're talking about this season and you're handing out awards and accolades for this season in particular, games played and actually showing up for work and, handling your business to me matters. And I think that disqualifies some players, some really great players. And I know going forward, they're going to do the 65 game minimum, which will be very interesting. We're going to start digging a little deeper because there's a lot of guys that are going to be on all NBA teams or win awards this year that didn't play 65 games. So this year, little more lenient, but I still think that games played should be a significant factor when you're talking about regular season awards. Before we get into it, make sure you take a second to subscribe to the channel. We're at almost 1,200 subscribers. The play-in starts tomorrow. The playoffs coming up this weekend, and we're going to be covering every team, every game, every series. So make sure to subscribe. We're going to go crazy. It's going to be a ton of fun. Would love to hear your thoughts. So when we're breaking down these awards, make sure that I would love to hear some of your thoughts or some of the things you disagree with me on, agree with me on. And obviously, this was a very tough year, especially when you're discussing things like the MVP. I think Most Improved Player, Defensive Player of the Year is a really, really tough discussion. This is just the way that I view the game. And I would love to hear the way that you view it. And no need to attack anyone or get mean or violent as a lot of the conversations have. But let's hear our thoughts. Let's share our thoughts and let's talk basketball because it's what we all love. So I want to start with a couple of the easy awards. They added Clutch Player of the Year. De'Aaron Fox is going to win that in a landslide. He deserves that in a landslide. Phenomenal job leading the Kings to where they're at this year. And De'Aaron Fox is going to win that. Not really much else to say there. Rookie of the Year. Now, this is interesting. Not number one, Paolo Banchero, clearly the Rookie of the Year. Number two, Jalen Williams had an unbelievable season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Really excited about the future of him, especially with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren coming back, and we'll see who else they add over there in Oklahoma City. And then number three, Walker Kessler, Benedict Mathurin, both of those players really good. I would lean Walker Kessler for number three, in my opinion, just because of the defensive presence he added in Utah, the way that they played at such a high level. Benedict Mathurin, I got a chance to watch him in person in Indiana. Guy is relentless, will attack the basket, has a really, really solid mindset for a young basketball player. He's going to be really good for the Pacers and I think should be a good piece for them going forward. Coach of the Year, another award that I think is pretty obvious. Mike Brown, coach of the Sacramento Kings, got to be the Coach of the Year. Led them to the playoffs for the first time since 2006. The Sacramento Kings are playing unbelievable basketball. They have the number one offensive rating of all time, and Mike Brown holds his players accountable, coaches them hard, and was able to bring out the best in De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis. Keegan Murray had an unbelievable rookie year, and the way that they all played together, and he maximized the talent he had on that squad. Mike Brown absolutely should be the Coach of the Year. Number two, This is one that I didn't hear brought up a lot. I would have Coach Mike Malone of the Denver Nuggets number 2. I think he's getting a little slept on, but number 1 seed in the Western Conference, first time ever for the Denver Nuggets being the number 1 seed. They played unbelievable basketball. Him being able to work through some of their injuries as well. I think Mike Malone. And then number 3 is the Oklahoma City Thunder coach. To be quite frank with you, I don't know how to say his name, and I'm not even going to attempt to try. But the job he did with that young team and bringing out the best in some of his young guys, to the fact that they're in the play-in, unbelievable job by the Thunder coach. And, as they move forward, like I said, with their young guys and with their coach that I like, which again, I apologize for not being able to say his name, be very interesting. Most improved player. Now, this is between 2 guys, and I think it's 2 guys clearly. Lauri Markennan would probably be my vote, although Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a close second. Lauri Markennan went from a pretty solid role player to all-NBA level player. From solid role player to all-star starter. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went from star to is this a top 15, top 10 player in the NBA? So Shai obviously took a jump into being one of the premier stars in the league. And as we watch him in the play-in tournament, I think a lot of people are going to be impressed with what they see from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, people that don't watch a lot of Oklahoma City Thunder games. Lauri Markennan, though, the jump he's made and the fact that he will probably end up being a max contract kind of guy and will be the future, one of the guys that the Utah Jazz build around, I think that the award will probably go to him, with Shai being a close second. Now it's time to get into some of the more controversial ones. Defensive Player of the Year for me was the single hardest one to pick. There were multiple candidates throughout the year that kind of threw their name in the hat, so to speak. I think you have Brook Lopez for a while was in that discussion. Jaren Jackson Jr., Draymond Green, Evan Mobley, Drew Holiday's an unbelievable defender. For me, I land on Evan Mobley being my pick for Defensive Player of the Year. Why is that? The Cleveland Cavaliers are number 1 in the NBA in defensive rating. So they have the best defense in the entire NBA. Evan Mobley is second in the entire NBA in win shares, defensive win shares. I apologize. His ability to play both in the post defensively and do a really good job on almost everybody other than Joel Embiid, but Embiid's a freak, so I'm not even going to crush him for that. But also his ability to switch on the perimeter. I believe they said he was 8th or 9th in switching defense in the entire NBA. His ability to go out on the perimeter and switch and guard guards and small guys and fast guys at a high level, move his feet really well. I think that Evan Mobley is the Defensive Player of the Year. And the reason that I would have him edge out Jaren Jackson Jr. and we'll talk about Brook Lopez and the other candidates here. Jaren Jackson Jr. missed a lot of basketball games this year, and he didn't play a lot of minutes in those games. He played about 28 minutes a game. So he played about 900 less minutes than Evan Mobley. When you're talking about defense, sometimes minutes played can make that tougher because staying on the court, staying out of foul trouble, if you're playing a little less minutes per game, it is a little easier to be a little more aggressive. So to me, Evan Mobley's ability to switch on the perimeter. Now, Jaren Jackson Jr. has a very good argument for this award. I would have him number 2. Brook Lopez, to me, drops a little bit because I think that you could argue he's the 3rd best defender on his team. I think that Drew Holiday's one of the top 2-3 perimeter defenders in the entire NBA, guard defenders definitely. And then Giannis Antetokounmpo on any given night could be the best defender in the NBA. So when you're looking at that squad, Giannis is actually his rim protection. When players go up against Giannis Antetokounmpo, they shoot 16% lower than what they normally shoot, which is just unbelievable numbers. So Brook Lopez had an amazing year, especially when you look at like his blocks and his counting stats. But I do think that when you look at the rest of his squad and roster around him, the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers were 1st in defensive rating, the Bucks were 4th, which is really good. But with all the good players around Brook Lopez, to me, I would lean Evan Mobley a little bit. And then the final one, Draymond Green, I actually have 4th. Draymond Green, just when you watch him, he's unbelievable defensively. He communicates well. When he really gets up into players and is playing them physical, talking trash, getting in their head, he's still one of the best defenders in the entire NBA. And really the only knock on Draymond Green is that his team's defense is just not very good. The Golden State Warriors are 14th in defensive rating. So when you're talking about defensive player of the year, I'm someone that, again, values games played, with which Evan Mobley has a ton of. And that's why he edges out Jaren Jackson to me. And how did your team perform? Being the number one defensive rated team in the entire NBA is highly impressive, especially because you have two guards out there that, let's face it, are not elite level defenders in both Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So I think that this award is close. I'm okay with whoever your opinion is on it. But me, I would lean Evan Mobley from what I've seen, his ability to guard anywhere on the court and the way that his team defense rated. I would have an Evan Mobley. Now, I want to move on to the All-NBA team before I get into MVP, because honestly, the MVP discussion has become very interesting this year, and the way that people are attacking each other kind of sucks. It's taken a little bit of the fun out of it. Makes me almost a little nervous to be able to come on here and give my opinion on the MVP, because some of the way that people are talking about each other, I think, I don't know, it's basketball. We should be enjoying it. We should be bringing out the joy in the game. So let's talk about the All-NBA team. This was very tough at a couple spots. So I think the center position was pretty easy. It kind of comes down to, did you think Embiid or Jokic had a better year? I actually leaned Embiid when it comes to first team All-NBA center, just because I think that when you talk about this season and you're remembering the 2022-2023 NBA season, I think that Joel Embiid is going to be the guy that, I just think he deserved it this year. I personally think that Jokic is the better player. I think he deserved the MVP over Embiid the last couple years. And I actually don't have Embiid winning the MVP this year either, which I'll get to in a second. But I think first team All-NBA, Jokic at the end of the season, clearly I don't think was trying to award chase. He was going out there and they had the 1 seed locked up. They're trying to get healthy going into the playoffs. And I just don't think that they put a priority on winning these awards, and that's perfectly okay, because Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets' focus is winning a title and not just winning an MVP, not winning a first-team All-NBA, which I do think was Embiid's focus this year. Whatever your opinion is on that, I think that if Embiid wins this award, he darn well better play good in the playoffs, which he hasn't done in the past. So that's going to be really important. The forward spot is the easiest one. First team, it's Jason Tatum and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it's really not much of a discussion. They're 5th and 6th in the league in scoring. Tatum played 74 games, his team's second best record in the NBA. Giannis has the best record in the NBA, 5th in the league in scoring, and played 63 games. Pretty easy. First team guards, this one's a little interesting because I actually disagreed with a lot of people here. I have Donovan Mitchell, played 68 games, averaged 28.3 points per game, 10th in the league in scoring. His team was 4th in the Eastern Conference, and they took a significant jump by adding him. So one of the things that I talked about, my criteria, games played matters a ton to me. When you're talking about this season in the snapshot, playing 68 games is a significant amount of the season, and I would lean him and his team success and the way that he played all year and the team rose to the occasion. I would have Donovan Mitchell as my first team guard, and then I would have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 4th in the league in scoring, again 68 games played. I would have him as my other first team All-NBA guard. Moving on to the second team. This is where it gets a little interesting. Nikola Jokic, obviously, second team All-NBA center. Forward spots, I think this is really tough, and this is where my games played is going to matter a little bit. I have Jaylen Brown with 67 games played. He's 13th in the league in scoring, averages 26.6 points per game, 6.9 rebounds, 3.5 assists, is a good defender. Jaylen Brown, to me, is second team All-NBA forward. And this year, I think they're actually probably going to vote him as a forward rather than a guard. I think he plays a little bit more of a forward, especially when you look at that Celtics roster with Malcolm Brogdon, Marcus Smart, Derek White. I think Jaylen Brown, you could argue, is definitely more of a forward. Rob Williams was out for so much of the year. I think he played a majority forward this year. Julius Randle is actually the second guy that I would give my second team All-NBA forward spot to. Now, this is one that's probably going to have some disagreement with it. But this is where my principle of games played really, really matters. You're the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. Julius Randle averaged 25.1 points per game, and he played 77 games. When you're talking about this NBA season and what we watched this year, Julius Randle deserves the All-NBA nod. And when you look at some of the other forwards, I just don't think that you can make a super strong case that they deserve it over him. The guard spot, to me, the second team guards were not too difficult. De'Aaron Fox absolutely deserves it. We talked about him a second ago. De'Aaron Fox had an unbelievable season, played 73 games, 25 points per game, and then led his team to the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. De'Aaron Fox took a major jump. Super excited to watch this Kings team in the playoffs. Led the number 1 offense of all time. And I think when you're looking at that, another guy that I think being out there on the court, being consistent for his team, really gave him a boost. And then Luka Doncic, this was one that I kind of struggled with, to be honest with you. When you're looking at the All-NBA team record, I still put value in it because I think if we're talking about you having a great year, your team's success should matter. Luka was second in the league in scoring, 32.4 points, 8.6 rebounds, 8 assists. We know what he represents defensively, obviously a massive liability. His team fell apart. And when you're talking about this season, I do think it is a negative mark on Luka Doncic's career. And when we look back, the fact that he was in his prime and completely missed the playoffs, the play-in, when you're talking about 10 out of 15 teams in each conference, that's 2/3 of the league, make the NBA playoffs or the postseason, the play-in, and he wasn't one of them. I do think that this hurts Luka Doncic, but ultimately still played 66 games. Those numbers are absolutely through the roof. And when you're looking at the guards, I don't know that you have another guy who you could strongly and definitively say had a better season than Luka Doncic. 3rd team All-NBA. My center is definitely Domantas Sabonis. And the fact that the Sacramento Kings traded for him last season and were a franchise that hadn't made the playoffs in so long, and the first full season with Sabonis on the squad, they make the NBA playoffs. His ability to be a playmaker, his ability to score efficiently, the way he can play off of Fox, the way that he can spread the floor, I think he's an absolute weapon. He absolutely deserves the 3rd team All-NBA nod. Guard is interesting. Steph Curry would probably be one of my would be one of my selections. Now the thing about Steph is he did not play a ton of games, and my computer's kind of bugging out here. 56 games, which is pretty low. To me, if you played less than 55 games, you absolutely can't be picked, which is why a guy like Kevin Durant doesn't make the list. But Stephen Curry, his team is a 6th seed. He averaged 29.4 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Steph was unbelievable. He did miss part of the season, but when you're looking at the other guards, there's quite a few guys out there. If you wanted to argue, Ja Morant, he played a couple more games than Steph, averaged a little less points. Kind of had some, interesting things go on throughout the season. Jalen Brunson. To me, my other guard is Anthony Edwards, and that's another guy who just played almost every game this year. 79 games, 25 points a game. His team was the 8th seed, despite being an absolute wreck around him. Karl Anthony Towns missed most of the season. Rudy Gobert was a disaster. And Anthony Edwards was able to keep his team afloat. And to me, that means something. When you're talking about who had one of the top 5-6 guard seasons in the NBA, I would say Anthony Edwards is in that conversation. Be curious to see who you had in that guard spot. Jalen Brunson obviously requires a ton of thought. Jalen Brunson and who's the other one I said? Jalen Brunson and it'll come to me in a second, but were the toughest omissions from this list. James Harden also had a really good season. And then the forward spot, this one's tough. You could argue LeBron, but again, he missed so many games. I would have Lauri Markennan when you're looking at this season in totality. played 66 games, 26 points a game, led a Utah team that was supposed to be tanking, was supposed to be the worst team in the entire NBA. And like I said, going to be a max guy, 26 and 9. That's a really, really solid season for Lauri Markennan. And then my final pick would be Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler played 64 games this year, 23 points per game. His team was a 7 seed, just like LeBron's. If you wanted to have LeBron in there, I wouldn't be mad at it. But he was at the 55 game mark, which when you're looking at all these forwards and what they were all able to accomplish this year, 55 felt a little low to me. And when you're telling the story of this NBA season, I think that Lauri Markkanen, his rise and his jump, I think he deserves that consideration. I think he deserves the All-NBA nod. Now, Utah, this will make them probably have to pay him more in his next contract, so I'm not sure that they want that. But still, unbelievable season from Lauri Markkanen. I do want to touch briefly on the MVP. In one of my last videos, I did spend a little time talking about this already. I would pick Giannis Antetokounmpo for the MVP. Giannis, to me, fits most of the benchmarks I have when discussing MVP. Team success. Best player on the best team, I think matters. Who is just the best player in the NBA? Now, that doesn't matter in a single season, but I think that if it's close, that is one of the deciding factors. Your statistics, your historical precedent, where you rank amongst all time. I don't look at narrative. I don't look and think, well, Giannis is 1-2, Jokic is 1-2. We just got to give Embiid one. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. When you're looking at this discussion, Embiid averages 2 more points per game than Giannis, which is very minimal. Giannis shoots higher percentage from the field. Giannis averages 1.6 more rebounds per game, 1.5 more assists per game, is a better defender. His team has a better record than Embiid when both of them play. Giannis's team wins about 74% of the games. When Giannis plays, Embiid's team wins about 66%. Embiid's team actually has a better record with Embiid off the court. Giannis's team does not have as good of a record with Giannis off the court. So when you're breaking it down and it's very close, you have to nitpick a little bit. And to me, I would just lean Giannis Antetokounmpo over Joel Embiid, and I would give Giannis his 3rd MVP. We've seen the playoff success. We've seen everything that Giannis represents. And to me, I believe that he should win this award. To finish it off, Nikola Jokic probably is number 3. Jason Tatum, number 4. It'll be interesting to see if he can take a step forward. If Tatum wins an NBA championship this year, I think that going into next season, he's going to have a little more respect when it comes to the MVP award. Part of the thing that hurts him is the fact that Jaylen Brown is on his squad, and you have 2 really, really high-level players. Number 5, you could argue Mitchell or Sabonis. I would probably lean Sabonis just because the fact that the Kings have struggled for so long. They added this guy, and they're playing unbelievable basketball. But all in all, unbelievable NBA regular season. There were so many storylines. Going into the playoffs, we're going to have more parity than ever. You're going to see some of the 6, 7, 8 seeds be favored over the 2, 3, 4 seed, 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds. And it's going to be fascinating. All in all, we're gonna wait for these play-in games. We're gonna break those down, and then I'm gonna give my official playoff predictions and what I see happening going forward. So make sure that you subscribe. Don't miss any more of the content. Again, let me know some of your thoughts on these awards. If you disagree with me, if you think I'm right on some of them, please let me know. It's much appreciated. Cyborg out.